Tia reluctantly entered the busy office with her usual coffee order in her left hand and her satchel over her right shoulder. The clatter of keyboards and the low hum of office chatter felt like a wave crashing over her, pulling her under. Her desk, a small island in a sea of identical cubicles, felt more like a cage. As a data analyst, Tia was good with numbers, but the unspoken social equations of the office were a puzzle she couldn't solve. Her colleagues, Brenda and Mark, their heads bobbing over their computer screens like meerkats, openly gossiped, their whispers sharp and pointed like tiny arrows aimed directly at her. They would delegate their own tasks to TIA with a saccharine smile, or worse, subtly sabotage her work, leaving her to clean up the digital mess. Today the arrows felt sharper than usual. As she passed their desks, she overheard Brenda's stage whisper, "Did you see the report she submitted yesterday?" A 5-year-old could have done better. Mark snickered in agreement. Ti's stomach twisted into a tight knot. She sank into her chair, the weight of their words pressing down on her shoulders. She spent the rest of the day with her head down, the screen a blurry haze as she rechecked her perfectly fine report, paranoia creeping into the corners of her mind. Later that afternoon, another urgent task from Mark landed in her inbox, a task she knew was his responsibility. As the clock ticked past 5 and the office began to empty, Ti stared at the glowing screen, the cursor blinking mockingly. The thought of coming back tomorrow and the day after that was suffocating. She opened a new tab, her fingers hovering over the search bar, and typed the words she'd been avoiding for weeks: data analyst jobs. The next morning, the office air was thick with tension. A major project deadline had been missed and the department head was on the warpath. Ti knew instantly what had happened. Brenda, with a panicked look on her face, was pointing a finger directly at TIA's desk. It was TI's data. She exclaimed, her voice ringing with false sincerity. The numbers she gave me were all wrong. I told her to double-check them. Ti's heart plummeted. She had sent Brenda the correct data set 3 days ago with a follow-up email yesterday. But Brenda had conveniently missed the update and used an outdated file. It was a classic lazy mistake, now being pinned entirely on her. The weight of the injustice was too much. Her vision blurred and the office sounds faded into a dull roar. She mumbled an apology she didn't owe and fled, a tidal wave of tears threatening to break free. She locked herself in a stall in the ladies' room, the cool tiles a small comfort against her burning cheeks. The sobs she'd been holding back finally escaped, ragged and quiet. A gentle knock on the door made her jump. "TIA, it's Sarah," a soft voice said. It was her manager. Ti quickly wiped her eyes, her face hot with embarrassment. She opened the door to see Sarah standing there, her expression one of genuine concern, not anger. "I know what happened," Sarah said kindly, her voice low. "Brenda has a history of this. But right now, you look like you've been through the ringer." She gave Ti a small, sympathetic smile. "If you're feeling too unwell to stay, why don't you go home early? We can sort this out tomorrow." The offer was a lifeline. Ti nodded, unable to find her voice, a fresh wave of gratitude washing over her. Ti collected her satchel and coat from her desk, avoiding the curious and judgmental stares of her colleagues. The moment she stepped outside, a blustering wind threw a sheet of cold rain into her face, a perfect match for the storm inside her. Head down, she hurried along the slick pavement, wanting nothing more than the sanctuary of her small apartment. As she neared a bus stop, she saw a young black father wrestling with a folded stroller while trying to keep his 2 small children close. A little girl, no older than 2, clutched a well-loved teddy bear, while her slightly older brother, maybe 6, bounced with impatient energy. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind ripped the teddy bear from the little girl's grasp. It cartwheeled through the air, landing in a puddle before tumbling toward the busy street. The little girl let out a heart-wrenching wail as the bus pulled up to the stop. Without a second thought, Tia broke into a sprint. Her satchel bounced against her hip, and the cold rain stung her face. But all she saw was the brown bear skidding perilously close to the road. She lunged, her fingers closing around its soggy, plush arm just as it was about to be swept away by the wind again. Panting, she ran to the bus, its doors hissing, ready to close. "Wait!" she called out. She reached the steps and handed the dripping teddy bear to the wide-eyed little girl, whose tears instantly turned into a wobbly, grateful smile. Her brother's eyes were wide with awe. "Wow! You were so fast," he shouted, his voice filled with pure excitement. "You're like a superhero." The father, looking immensely relieved, managed to get his son to calm down. Thank you so much, he said to TIA, his voice sincere as he juggled his children and the stroller onto the bus. That's her favorite. You have no idea what a disaster you just saved us from. As the bus pulled away, TI stood on the pavement, the rain plastering her braids to her head, but she barely noticed. A superhero. The boys' words echoed in her mind. It was a small thing, a silly, drenched teddy bear, but in that moment she hadn't been anxious or worried. She had just acted. Walking the rest of the way home, a new feeling began to bloom in her chest, resolve. No more running, no more hiding. It was time to stand up for herself. It was time to learn to say no. The following Monday, Mark sauntered over to her desk, a stack of files in his hand. Hey, TIA, he said with his usual oily charm. Could you be a star and just run these numbers for me? I'm swamped. The old TA would have mumbled sure and spent her lunch break doing his work. But the new TA looked him directly in the eye, her voice calm and steady. No, she didn't offer an excuse. She didn't apologize. She just said no. Mark blinked, completely taken aback, like a fish out of water. He stammered for a moment, then retreated to his desk, the files still in his hand. It felt like a small victory, but it was electric. A tiny spark of power. Over the next 8 months, TI continued to practice her new superpower. No, Brenda, I can't reorganize your presentation slides. No, Mark, I don't have time to fix your spreadsheet formulas. With each refusal, the invisible weight on her shoulders lightened. The seasons outside her office window changed from the gray of winter to the bright green of spring and then to the golden warmth of summer. As the leaves began to turn again, TI realized she no longer dreaded entering the office. The background chatter was just noise, not a personal attack. She started taking her full lunch break, sometimes even eating outside in the sun. She found herself smiling more, engaging in conversations with colleagues from other departments, and rediscovering the parts of her job she actually enjoyed. She was no longer the office doormat. She was just TIA, the data analyst who was good at her job. The shift did not go unnoticed. Without TI to cover for them, Brenda and Mark's incompetence became glaringly obvious. Deadlines were missed, reports were filled with errors, and their excuses grew flimsier. One afternoon, a critical project they were leading imploded due to a massive, easily avoidable mistake. The fallout was swift. An internal investigation revealed the years of delegated work and a fundamental lack of skill. Mark was fired on the spot. Brenda, seeing the writing on the wall, handed in her resignation the very next morning. The office felt strangely quiet without their whispered gossip, but it was a peaceful quiet. TI sat at her desk, the morning sun streaming through the window, a fresh coffee in her left hand and her satchel on the floor beside her. She took a deep breath, air clean and light, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly happy at work.